Hi guys, so in today's video we are going to discuss all about intermittent fasting. What is intermittent fasting? The hype around it, actual science, advantages, disadvantages, and my personal experience with intermittent fasting. So let's start the video. What is intermittent fasting? First of all, intermittent fasting is not a diet but an eating pattern or a way of consuming your meals in which you restrict your food intake to a certain time period called eating window, and the rest of the time you fast, that is called fasting window. In the fasting window, only few things are allowed like water, black coffee or like herbal teas. Intermittent fasting can be categorized into two different parts: time restricted feeding and alternate day fasting. In time restricted feeding, you limit your food intake to certain number of hours, let's say 8 hours, 6 hours or 4 hours, and the rest of the time you are on a fast. Now most people by default follow a 13 to 14 hour fasting window without even realizing, and they eat within that 8 to 10 hour window where they eat 1 to 2 hours after waking up and 2 to 3 hours before sleeping at night. If you slightly push that fasting window by 1 or 2 hours, it becomes 16 to 8 hours intermittent fasting pattern that most people are familiar with. In time restricted feeding, you limit your food intake to certain number of hours, let's say 4 hours, 6 hours or 8 hours. In alternative fasting, you go on without food for 24 hours or more. It can extend up to 36 hours, 48 hours or even 72 hours as well. In this pattern, typically you eat for 3 days and then go on without food for 24 hours or more. Intermittent fasting in its actual form means going without food for 24 hours or more, and not the 16:8 fasting and eating pattern that most people believe it to be. Now let's check what all the hype is around intermittent fasting. You will see many celebrities promoting intermittent fasting for fat loss, and many people promoting intermittent fasting by misinterpreting and over-exaggerating the currently available research in the name of science. Intermittent fasting is shown to increase human growth hormone or HGH, which plays a key role in muscle recovery, strength gains, etc. First of all, when you are dieting and following an intermittent fasting routine, that spike in human growth hormone is caused by a calorie deficit and not just by fasting. And to reach that significant level of HGH, you have to fast at least for 3 days or 72 hours. Do you actually think it is possible for people to go on without food for 3 days? The next hype around intermittent fasting is that intermittent fasting helps you lose weight. So let's discuss how intermittent fasting helps you lose weight. When you restrict your eating window to certain hours, let's assume 8 hours, there is only so much food that you can eat. Some people are not able to consume too much food in one go, so they end up eating less, which in turn leads to less calorie consumption for that day. Eating fewer calories is what helps you lose weight. If you would have eaten the same amount of calories spread across the day, and instead of that 8-hour window, you would have lost the same amount of weight if you were in a calorie deficit. Now let's discuss few advantages of following intermittent fasting that can actually help a small group of people. If you are someone who prefers eating a large quantity of food, then following intermittent fasting might be a better option for you. Since you would be consuming large quantity of food, you would be feeling full for a longer time. And it is not for people who like to eat frequently in smaller portions. The next advantage can be if you are too busy to cook and are often confused what to eat in the next meal. So following intermittent fasting can be a good option. You get rid of the hassle of cooking again and again. Just skip one meal, let's say a breakfast, and you reduce your cooking problems by 33%. The next advantage can be if it suits your lifestyle. If you are on the road for most of the time for work or travel most of the time, then you can try following intermittent fasting. You can just have a heavy breakfast and go off to your work and don't have to think about where to eat your lunch, and just return back to your home and have dinner. The next advantage can be it helps you to be more disciplined. To achieve something in life, you have to be disciplined, be it your fat loss goal or other things in life. When you restrict your food intake to a certain time, you practice self-control and mental restraint of not eating anything apart from your eating window. So these were the advantages, and now let's discuss few disadvantages as well. So it can be very tough for most of the people to go on without food for longer times. As they are deeper into their fasting window, they will constantly be thinking about food and keep on checking time again and again in anticipation of when to eat. This can lead you to eat anything and everything that you can get your hands on when you're in the eating window, and might end up overeating too much and going over your targeted calorie intake for the day. The sole purpose of following intermittent fasting was that you can limit your food intake to those 8 hours so that you can restrict your calorie intake. Just because you had to fast for 16 hours, it doesn't mean that you will eat anything and everything in that 8 hours window. Even if you're following intermittent fasting, you still have to keep a tab on your daily calorie intake and macronutrient distribution. Spread your calories and macros uniformly across those 2 and 3 meals in that eating window. The next disadvantage can be obsessing too much about food timing. There is nothing magical about hitting that 16-hour mark in your fasting window. Some days if you're not feeling up to it, you can even have food after 13 or 14 hours as well. And some days if you're able to go on without food for 18 hours, so that also works. It is all about what works for you and not just blindly sticking to that 16-hour mark. I'm personally following intermittent fasting for the last 2-3 years because I'm too lazy to cook again and again, and I prefer eating larger meals in one go rather than eating multiple times a day. Also, I work out in the morning and don't prefer to eat anything before my workouts. So I just skip breakfast and have lunch around 2 pm and then dinner at 8 pm. Now this is just my personal preference and you don't have to start following the same. Also, please consult your doctor before starting out anything if you have any medical conditions. That's it for today, and I hope this video was helpful. If you learned something new today, please give it a like and share it with the people whom you think might benefit from it. If you have any questions, just feel free to post them in the comment section. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.